Hey guys, my name is Ureli Contreras, and today I will be giving a short presentation on my topic, which was catabolism and anabolism. So let's get started. So before we get into actually both of those processes, we're going to start off with talking a little bit about metabolism and what that means. So metabolism is a collection of reactions that take place within a microbe. The function is essentially for the reproduction of the organism, and the energy source is through catabolism and anabolism. As you see here in slide 2, there's a little overview of metabolism, and you'll see that the blue arrows are the catabolism, and the yellow arrows are the anabolism. It's very important to know that um, metabolism needs to happen in order to maintain life. It is a vital process for all living things, not just humans, and the balancing of anabolism and catabolism play a major part in this. So again, the two major classes are catabolic pathways and anabolic pathways. Uh, and so we'll get a little into those here. Let's start off with catabolic pathways. So catabolic pathways, excuse me, is the breakdown of larger molecules into smaller products. It's an exergonic process, which means it releases energy when this is happening. On slide 4, you'll see a little image of a connected molecule, which is considered a larger molecule, and the breakdown of those two is going to be smaller particles and energy. And as many of us know, energy is another word used for ATP, which is the currency of cells, of how they function, where they get the energy, where they get essentially the money to be able to do things. So moving forward, we'll see anabolic pathways. And the same type of image, you'll see smaller particles in one side and you'll see energy. So energy is required um, to come in with the smaller molecules to produce a bigger molecule again. And so it's a synthesis of larger molecules from smaller products, which are usually the smaller products of catabolism. It's an in sync pathway. So when one's happening, the other one's happening. The energy that's being produced from catabolic pathways is being used by anabolic pathways to create larger molecules. So it's considered an endergonic, which means they require more energy than they release. Okay. Um, so really quickly, we can think of catabolism and anabolism as like Lego sets. And so let's say you build a house from a Lego set. Building that house would be an anabolic pathway because you are using smaller molecules to come together to have a big product, right? And so let's say after you're done building a house, somebody comes in like, you know what, I want to build a car. So they're going to break down some of those Lego sets, which would be, considered smaller molecules, and build something else. So the breakdown of those Lego sets would be considered catabolism because it's breaking it down. The wool will probably remain with the basic structure, like a rectangular base. We're still going to break it down and build something new because not your body might not need everything that it's building, so you'll need to break it down because you'll need it in a different form. So that's kind of an example of how I used to help me remind myself of catabolism, which would be the breakdown, and anabolism, the buildup. So, like I said before, catabolism would be considered like a destructive process because it's the breakdown of complex molecules into simpler molecules. An example of this would be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, DNA, RNA breakdown into like monosaccharides, fatty acids, and nucleic acids. These are going to be molecules that the body's able to absorb more efficiently. Harvesting the energy and storing most of it as ATP is part of the process of catabolism because it's producing ATP and energy. Simultaneously, when it's producing that, anabolism is happening, right, in the cells. And so, anabolism is a constructive process of building more complex molecules from smaller, simpler molecules. So, an example of this would be fatty acids, amino acids, sugars, nucleotides, making proteins, new DNA strands, and fats. So this is going to be like, once it's breaking down, we're going to build something else, but we're going to build it a little bit differently so the body can absorb it that way, because different parts of the body are going to require these molecules in different forms. And so these pathways are going to be able to help make them and break them into the proper forms that are needed. And so the energy that is acquired through catabolic processes is used to drive these anabolic processes. So this slide 8, is going to just show a couple just random facts, as well as an image about, to hopefully help you understand that while catabolism is happening, anabolism is happening at the same time, and they're using each other, right? So you can look how glucose is being broken down to CO2 and H2O and producing energy, ATP, and while amino acids are going to use that energy to produce proteins. And so this cycle is just going to keep going for whatever it is that your body needs. Going back to the facts, so neither process is completely efficient. Some energy is lost into the environment as heat during the different steps of both of these processes. Sometimes I'd like to think of this as like when you're working out and you're sweating and stuff like that, like energy is being produced during that time, and energy is being needed, as well as your body's building muscle. So it all comes into play. Like anything that you eat, you bring into your body breaks it down. Whatever's being used will be used. Whatever's not will be stored or released through waste, through like the skin, kidneys, lungs, intestines, etc. It's very important to remember that the enzymes are the driving force of these reactions. These enzymes are coded by genes that specify what the role of the enzyme will be. So this can be a whole nother presentation on its own, but it's very important to know that the enzymes are kind of like the construction manager. They're the ones who are going to be telling telling the processes what needs to happen, though. It's going to be telling catabolism, like, hey, we need more of this, go ahead and make it. Hey, we need to build this, so go ahead and make it. So it's kind of like the manager of a construction site. So before we get into if there was any new research, here on my notes I have, it's important to remember that catabolism is breaking down body tissue and energy stores to get more fuel for the body. So if the body needs something, it's going to use it up. It's going to break it down through catabolic pathways to use that energy up. And at the same time, anabolism is going to be building up tissue and energy stores, right? So these are in sync. They're happening at the same time. So with that being said, that leads me to there wasn't much new research on these processes, because I think a lot of researchers and scientists already have it down, like these are the processes that need to happen. But it is confirmatory that metabolism has its own dense network of metabolic enzymes and interactions that play an active role in the control of its own operations. So they kind of have their own little powerhouse, brain in making sure that these processes are happening how they're supposed to happen. With that, is there any questions or comments? Let me know. Send me a message. Hopefully try to answer them. Or you can let Dr. Bomick know. My bibliography here, you're going to see a couple of the references and resources that I use to just confirm some of this information that I have listed here, as well as my abstract summary, which is just, reminding you that metabolism and its major pathways are, catabolism and anabolism of cells, which need to happen in order to properly continue with a cell's life, or the reproduction of a cell, for, to build and to grow. And so catabolism is a breakdown of larger molecules into smaller molecules, and anabolism is the building of a molecule from smaller molecules. And with that being said, I think that'll be it for me. Thank you.